Hey, this is Tim. You're listening to My Non-Objective Opinion on People's Radio United. Today we have guest Dr. Mike talking about his film HAVRESC. We'll be back in a minute. First, we're going to get started with Get Up, Stand Up by Bob Marley and the Wailers.
Get up, stand up. Stand up for your right. Get up, stand up. Stand up for your right. Get up, stand up. Stand up for your right. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight.
Preacher man, don't tell me heaven is under the earth. I know you don't know what life is really worth. It's not all that glitter is gold. Half the story had never been told. So now you see the light. Hey, stand up for your right. Come on.
Get up, stand up. Stand up for your right. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Get up, stand up. Stand up for your right. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight.
Most people think great God will come from the sky, take away everything and make everybody feel high. But if you know what life is worth, you would look for yours on earth. And now when you see the light, you stand up for your rights. Yeah,
Get up, stand up.
yeah, yeah.
Stand up for your right. Get up, stand up.
Get up, stand up.
Don't give up the fight.
Life is your right.
Get up, stand up.
We can't give up the fight.
Stand up for your right.
Lord, Lord,
Get up, stand up.
keep us traveling on.
Don't give up the fight.
Yeah.
We're sick and tired of your ism, schism, game, dine and go to heaven in Jesus' name, Lord. We know and we understand. Almighty God is a living man. You can fool some people sometimes, but you can't fool all the people all the time. So now we see the light.
What you gonna
We gonna stand up for our
Yeah,
rights.
yeah.
So you better
Get
get up,
up, stand up.
in the
don't
morning?
give it up,
Stand up for your right.
stand up right now.
Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight.
Don't give it up, don't give it up.
Get up, stand up.
Get up, stand up,
Stand up for your right.
get up, stand up.
Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight.
Get up, stand up.
Get up, stand up. Stand up for your right. Get up, stand up.
Okay, we're back with My Non-Objective Opinion on People's Radio United. I'm here with Dr. Mike. How are you doing today, Dr. Mike?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you for coming. So today we're going to be talking about the movie HAVRESC that's coming out. Stand On Courage, it's called. HAVRESC Stand On Courage. And it's a movie about an Armenian village in Iraq that's standing up to ISIS, basically. But first, let's get into Dr. Mike here. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do without going into too many details?
Sure. Yeah, I'm an American of Armenian descent, about 4 generations, and I'm a doctor in California. And I have been watching with maybe greater interest than the typical American what was happening by jihadists at first, and then morphed into ISIS, starting in Syria during the 2011 coup against Assad. I had watched that with, a greater radar than the typical person being of Armenian descent. We're a little bit more attuned to genocide, having seeing the first modern genocide perpetrated against us in 1915 against the Armenians, but also the Assyrian Christians, the Greek Christians, the what are now also the Yazidi people who are in the news in northern Iraq. It was these Ottoman Turks, which was the last caliphate, by the way, that started slaughtering Christians in Syria. So I heard a lot of this through some of my patients, some of the horrific things that were going on, and 2012 and 13, and frankly, I had a hard time kind of sitting still and sleeping and going on with my normal life, knowing that a genocide was being perpetrated again against the same basic people, non-Muslims, by the same people, Muslims or Islam. So that was kind of what drew me into this whole subject.
Okay. Yeah, I have Armenian heritage as well, and yeah, it's amazing to me that this country, especially this country, doesn't even acknowledge the genocide. I think it's really ridiculous. My grandfather fled from that. My great-grandfather fled from that.
Sure.
And that's how he ended up here, because of that. But anyway, let's get into the film now. HAVRESC Stand On Courage. You were you said you were the catalyst for the film, correct?
Well, my first trip became a catalyst. I don't like to inject myself too much around all of this, but the actual filmmaker is a fellow by the name of Dave Ritter. Mm-hmm. And David was contacted by my travel partner, Mr. Jeff Gardner, with the Picture Christians project. And he and I traveled, Jeff Gardner and I, traveled into Iraq in May and June of 2015. And so a couple of things that we were doing was visiting refugees, or they call them IDPs, internally displaced peoples. So if you leave, a war zone, but you stay in your own same country, that becomes an IDP. But effectively, it's a refugee in your own country. So we were going to meet these people. I kind of went out of just a complete and utter brokenness in my heart, in that our government the U.S. government was just not doing anything. And at some point I just said, I can't take this. I'm going to get on a plane. I'm going to go find some people. I knew that there were Armenians there. So one of the things on my checklist, if you will, was to go find some. I didn't know of any. In particular, I just went to go. And so Jeff Gardner, who does a lot of work with Assyrian Christians in the organization called Restore Nineveh Now, he was so taken back by the strength of courage that we found in this particular village, HAVRESC, that he connected with David, and it's really their project. I happen to be involved with it to a certain extent. I'm featured in it. The thing that intrigued you about my story intrigued them a little bit too. But really the movie itself is more about HAVRESC, and so they arranged a return trip in December of 2015. And, those two guys spent, a good 2 or 3 weeks living in the village and filming people and taking stories. So, I showed up there also during that same time frame and was able to get some footage there in the village, and but I've taken HAVRESC in as kind of my own personal middle finger to ISIS, if you will.
Can we talk about HAVRESC real quick? It's correct me if I'm wrong, and then you can go into a little more detail because I don't know a whole. I've been doing research on it for a couple of days now since I was going to interview you.
Sure.
But before that, I have never heard of it. It's a village in Iraq, and the people that live there originally came about 100 years ago, fleeing from the genocide.
Yeah, generally speaking, and what was interesting, even my, I won't call it research, but information that continues to come to me as a result of, showing this film and connecting with people here in California, in the Armenian and the Iraqi community. What's interesting is the story was that Armenians set up this village in northern Iraq, just south of the Turkish border, as a result of the Armenian genocide in 1915. But it turns out that it was built in the 20s, and now I'm finding out that it was actually built originally in the late 20s, which is almost a decade after. And I found out from a local fella. He runs a website called gagrule.net, I believe. You may know of him. He's an activist, an Armenian activist. And he was actually born in Mosul, but he lives here in California, which is kind of humorous. And he told me that the village, and he's actually been to the village, because the village existed from about 1928 to 1975. In its original state. He said what was interesting, the Armenians didn't first settle there. He said a lot of them actually from that village that founded the village settled first in Armenia. And of course, during the 1920s was the Marxist, Leninist revolution. And these guys in Armenia, or these Armenians, they said, this is not for us, Marxism. and so they went back and into Iraq, where it was a little, I guess, more free and, Wild West, if you will. And they set up HAVRESC as a place not only of safety, but to launch attacks on the Turks. So it became kind of a little,
wow.
A refuge, which really, I'm finding this out afterwards. And then I'm told, and I'm not a linguist, but I'm told even the name HAVRESC is kind of a compilation in Armenian of a few words, but essentially it stands for the big revenge.
That's
which
awesome.
Is, it really is interesting. You can actually see, of course, I'm a man of faith, but you can actually see God's providence in this village going back, a century essentially. And but I've seen that in my life. I've seen that just in how my family came to the U.S. even was kind of a divine providence. So it's really, really kind of, it's just one of those things that I just chalk it off to, God saying, hey, we know what you guys are going to be up to in the future. And, we're going to lay the groundwork now. So it's kind of a cool side note to the history of it. The village itself was demolished in 1975 by Saddam. And it's documented in the film. If you're able to come out and see it, or anyone who would like to can go to the website for the film. Just Google HAVRESC with a C, HAVRESC.com, I believe, and HAVRESC Stand On Courage. And anyone can, contact David and arrange a screening for your group, small group, church, synagogue, what have you. But the
I was gonna post the information for
Terrific.
for the film along with this show, and I'm also going to post the trailer. I was going to play the trailer on here, but it has a lot of word, you know what I mean? So it's more of a visual kind of thing.
So good on radio.
Yeah, so I'm gonna link it to here so people can look at it when they listen. Okay.
Yeah. So Saddam bulldozed the village, not just that village, by the way, but he basically during the 70s, the historic description of that time was called the Arabization of northern Iraq. And what he was trying to do was take all these little ethnic communities, not just Armenians, by the way. It's Assyrian Christians, the Kurds, there's a lot of minorities there, the Yazidis, the Shabaks, the Turkoman. There are all these little kind of minorities. What's interesting in that part of the world is people tend to clump ethnically or tribally, if you will, over there. So, you can have a Yazidi village exactly, walking distance from a Christian village in that part of the world, and they get along with each other. Those two groups, but they like to live with their people, and so it turns out Saddam's theory was if we can go in and kind of bulldoze all these little hamlets, put Arabs in there. Will ethnically mix the area, and eventually the Arabs will control via population. And what I can't do militarily will do, ethnogenetically. So that was kind of his thought. So they bulldozed this village, and it kind of, they didn't kill everybody; they just scattered everybody. So people moved to Mosul, Baghdad, even, and other larger towns. They just kind of scattered. But what's interesting is now with ISIS rolling in there, this village, which was rebuilt in 2006, has become a refuge for not just Armenians but other Christians. It's become an unofficial IDP, camp, if you will, and the story of it being rebuilt in 2006 is quite remarkable. Again, as Americans, we're blessed and we're both cursed at the same time by our oceans. The blessing is we're insulated. The curse is we're insulated. So we tend not to even pay attention to this part of the world, but the sad fact is that after Saddam was displaced, all manner of jihadis, it kind of uncorked the bottle of what is effectively a Sunni Shiite war going on over there. And, it's been a very, very dangerous place to be specifically a Christian, but really any jihadi aligned person, because they just kill everybody. The Christians were subject, dramatically in Mosul to kidnappings. Their churches would be bombed. I mean, I talked to a group of nuns in Erbil, which is the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan. And these women are, I almost don't want to call them women because they're men. I mean, their stature is just unbelievable. These girls, again, they're women, but they're fearless. Their nunnery was blown up in Mosul in 2009. So they moved out to the outskirts of Mosul, which are all Christian suburbs, essentially, of Mosul. And then ISIS comes rolling in 2014, and then they were displaced again. And so they're finding themselves increasingly displaced by these people. But they just kill Christians, kidnap Christians, harass their businesses. And so the whole catalyst and impetus to rebuild HAVRESC was to provide a safe place in 2006. This is how bad it was during that period of time. So, a handful of people who were former residents and grew up there, including the mayor, who's the main subject of the documentary, the mayor, Murat. They went out and just through the grit of their teeth, with no power, no electricity, no water, and just started building homes one at a time. And and that's kind of the story of the movie. It's like, we're faced with people who want to kill us. We're surrounded, but we're not going anywhere. And we're going to make it as safe as we can. If you kill us, you kill us. But by God, we're going to live our life. And that's a story that, transcends Iraq, to be honest with you. And that's kind of the shining, star of the movie to me.
Yeah, I see that with so many oppressed groups. It eventually gets to a point where you have to, I guess, be really strong and stand up. 'Cause that's all you have left, or you'll be, eliminated. That's it's a tragic thing. I mean, all throughout history we've seen that. So right now, what's going on in HAVRESC? I've seen the trailer for the movie. I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm hoping to see it this weekend. It looked like there was a lot of warring going on. Is that still happening right now, or are the people safe?
Yeah. I talk at least weekly to multiple people in Iraq, some of which are out on the front lines. The good news right now, and we're doing this radio show in late September of 2016, is that ISIS is back on their heels. They're being eroded around the margin. They are being captured on the roads. They're starting to send their wives and families out. We had a story about 3 weeks ago. No, let's call it about 6 weeks ago, of a convoy. Some of the people that I'm in contact and support in Iraq are fighting them. And this is a Red Dawn situation. I mean, we have the movie Red Dawn, 2 movies, but these people are living it. And so, they have no choice but to combat this. Their only other choice is to die or run. And people of HAVRESC are not running, and they're not dying either. So the report was that they had an inside report. By the way, I'm in contact with people who are directly in Mosul behind enemy lines, sabotaging things. And this is the thing to me that's just dumbfounding. I mean, I'm just a regular civilian, yet I've had probably early on more impact on destroying ISIS leadership than our government did for 15, 16 months. To me, it's shocking. But it's also, invigorating, because a difference can be made. And so the story that I heard was that they had inside information that a convoy, ISIS leaders were leaving Mosul for Raqqa. Mosul is the second largest city in Iraq. It's kind of their operational headquarters. I mean, Raqqa was kind of their original one, but really Mosul is where most of the leaders are purported to be. And so they set up on the border in a desert road in the middle of the night to hopefully capture this convoy, and they captured them. And so, my friend was telling me that they got them, and I thought, well, this is a good story. Keep telling me the details. I don't pry details. I just let them tell me whatever they're comfortable with. And he says that was all women. I go, what do you mean? He goes, it was all the wives and children. And they said, what was interesting is they had so much money. He says, I had never seen this much money in my life. We couldn't even count it. And they had gold, unbelievable amounts of gold, which is all blood money and blood gold. from everyone that they had stolen. He goes, but the leaders themselves were not part of the convoy. And the head wife begged my friend not to capture them. She said, take the money, take the gold, just let us go. Now, it's kind of an interesting conversation. You know, we're all humans. And I said to my friend, I go, what did you do? He goes, and he paused a long time. He said, I did not take the money, Michael. And he says, I am a Christian. It is the right thing to do, he says, you know. And so I said, yeah, you're right. It's blood money. And but he didn't so he turned her into the military police for interrogation and so forth. And so these are the stories that you're not hearing in the news, obviously. And of course, our military, keeps a tight lip on everything for security purposes. But behind the scenes, there people are rising up in Mosul on a daily basis and assassinating ISIS leaders. I got in my news feed the other day that they had. By the way, this was my group because they told me that they were doing it before the mission, and then I read it in my news feed. They had gone in and they killed the guards of Mosul's publishing house, where they publish all their propaganda. And so they had snuck up on them in the middle of the night, killed the guards, and went and burnt the publishing house down to the ground. You don't hear these in the news, but I guess maybe I have a few contacts that. That was actually it was open. That's an open source story. It's just not in American news. We're kind of consumed with the election right now. And
Also, I think they want to limit what we know about, especially with the groups like ISIS, because they're useful to our government to be able to keep certain laws in order and stuff. So, for instance, when ISIS attacks Muslims, we don't hear about that hardly ever, because that would destroy some of the narrative they're trying to feed us, I think.
Yeah, I mean, in Baghdad in the month of July of 2016, in 2 bombings, there was over 350 people killed. Just 2 bombings. I mean, the magnitude of that is stunning. And almost on a daily basis, ISIS is bombing with suicide bombs, by the way, truck bombs, car bombs, vests. In Baghdad, they're bombing Shiite neighborhoods. Again, really all this is, if you want to really boil it down to the core operational level, it's a Sunni Shiite war. Now, this business of, other puppet masters above that, kind of playing with the strings of the Shiites and Sunnis, you're probably right. But, on the ground, it's a Sunni Shiite war, and these people believe exactly everything about what they're doing. And at that level, it's demonic. Well, at the next level, it's demonic too, but anyhow.
Well, let me ask you a question. I think the other day when I talked to you, we kind of talked about it a second, but let's say if religion was out of it, like say there was no Sunni, no Shiite, no Christian, no Catholic, no Yazidi.
Yazidi. You pronounce it.
I can't.
Yazidi.
It's hard for me to say.
Yeah, no. Look, 15 months ago, I mean, before they ran up into Mount Sinjar, I had never heard of a Yazidi. And I'm a fairly, in touch guy with, world politics and stuff. Again, that's kind of the blessing and curse of the U.S. Our oceans.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that if you took all the religious affiliated groups and let's say there was no religion, would they still be fighting? And if so, what would it be? Is there something under it? Is the religion being used as an excuse to fight, or is the religion the reason they're fighting? In your opinion,
if we're talking about Islam, the religion itself is an excuse to fight. And again, it depends on how kind of how many onion layers you want to unpeel on this. At the most basic level, it's a Sunni Shiite civil war. But what is Sunni Shiite? It's Islam. Well, what is Islam? Islam is this is my opinion, a made-up religion by the Arabs to give a competing narrative to their Arab conquests that did happen, by Muhammad, or at least started by Muhammad, in the 620, AD. Arabs were essentially a non, they were a conquered people, to be honest with you. I mean, you go back to the Babylonian, the Persians, Medes, the Romans, Alexander the Great. All this whole area was conquered by other people. And in Muhammad's day, they sat up and started conquering places and had great success. I mean, at one point the Arab conquest reached all the way through northern Africa, all the way to India, and to me, having started to study Islam, what we're finding now is that the whole construct of Islam is made up. I mean, Muhammad is not even mentioned in historical documents outside the Quran, and even in the Quran, he's only named by name 4 times. It's stunning. So that's a whole other subject. Maybe we want to do another radio show. But in my opinion, Islam is a made up religion. Used to conquer what I would call God's people. So.
Okay. But see, the thing I was asking, I'm kind of not religious at all.
That's fine.
I'm not trying to be offensive to you. I mean, no. I believe that they're all kind of made up, and I'm not saying that to start a debate or anything. I mean, that's just how I believe.
There's no offense to that at all, my friend. No offense.
I'm saying the question I think I was actually trying to ask is, do you think it's really just a land grab, and the people, whatever are using the religion? That's kind of what I was trying to get at. I think I asked it the wrong way.
Islam is a political system, full stop. Always has been, always will be.
ISIS would be, I think.
ISIS is just one form of it. Yeah. Now, again, I'm going to talk academically with you. I've shared with you what my faith is, but I'm a doctor also, so I can talk clinically about things and not be, emotionally tied to certain things, even my own theology, to be honest with you. And so, but I'll use the onion layer example. It's how many layers of the onion do you want to drill down to? And so Islam is a first and foremost political and conquering movement. Whether you call it a religion, the religion I think was backed into the movement, to be honest with you. But it's first and foremost that. The broader question of, religion, you on an intellectual basis, you cannot ignore the historicity of this part of the world. And the historicity of this part of the world is deep. I mean, the Yazidi people, which neither one of us pronounce, a while ago. I met the Yazidis' top public holy man in their most holy temple in Laylish, which is in northern Iraq. There are some Yazidis I've read on bulletin boards that actually believe that was the Garden of Eden. Who knows? But their religion itself predates Abraham. Well, Abraham was the father of Judaism, or the Jewish people. And so you're dealing with some very, very ancient people groups over there. And, even when you look at Muhammad in that scope of things, I mean, that's the new kid on the block, to be honest with you, in terms of religion. And, religion is, man's attempt to connect with his creator, if you want to kind of boil that down. And, some of us get it wrong, but, I personally believe everyone has kind of a niche in there that seeks that connection out, and which is why you see religion all over the world that is not Christian or, Islam or Judaism. You see Hinduism, you see all sorts of stuff. I mean, that's, to me, and then we're getting kind of a spiritual discussion, but it's man's way to connect with their creator. So
yeah, I think a lot of people need something. I just don't like the fact that whichever group, when they use it to have people do atrocities to other people, I think that's a horrible thing, and I don't like how it divides groups as well. But
no question.
I mean, I tell everybody who's more religious, I hope you guys are right. I really do. But yeah, back to the HAVRESC, the town over there. I'm sorry, I got sidetracked with the whole religious thing.
No, it's it's a deep. At the end of the day, my friend, you cannot ignore the religious component over there. It is the driver. I mean, on the Christian side, the Christians are not the perpetrators; they are the defenders. And it depends on a person's willingness to, actually look at the spirit. Let me, I'll say this to you, and it's kind of interesting you bring this up. You're a very honest man. I'm not going to say details because they're just so gruesome. And when I heard some of these stories that were happening by ISIS to people over there, they were so twisted and really demonic that I didn't believe them at first. I mean, when in the first Gulf War, there's a very famous thing that happened, or well known now. That first of all, we baited Saddam into there, to invade them. But the stories that came out, and there was I think a Kuwaiti wife of a sheikh or something came to Congress and testified that they were, Saddam's army was throwing babies off the roof from the incubators and taking them over into Iraq, and that turned out to be utterly, completely false. It was total propaganda just to demonize Saddam's army. Not that there wasn't things to demonize about them, but in that instance, it was completely false. And so some of the stories I was hearing before I left from people on the inside, I just discounted as that type of propaganda. When I got there and I met unsolicited reports of that happening, and the things are so horrific, I don't want to say them. But when I heard the actual stories of firsthand accounts of this, if you sat 10 people in a room for an hour and cooked up evil things to do, you wouldn't come up with some of this stuff. That's how you can. I can prove to you, and I would do it offline if I don't want to do it on your radio show, but I'll tell you if you want to know offline. But they're so twisted that they're beyond human comprehension. And that tells me there's a supernatural component to it. So, regardless of what your opinion of religion is, and we can sit and, humans have been arguing about religion since humans have been around.
Yeah, I don't argue about it.
But you can't just dismiss. You can't dismiss the supernatural, and what is going on over there is so evil that it transcends just human conquest and evil. Is my point. So,
let's go back. I mean, I agree. It is horrible what's going on. Whatever And, humans through history have done some terrible, horrible things to other people. And
Yes.
whatever the cause is, it needs to stop.
Sure. Yeah.
But I was going to ask you about HAVRESC. You actually went there, and what was it like? I mean, was it? I know it wasn't probably as under attack as much as it had been when you were there, I guess you'd said. But I'm just saying, what was it like there? How were the people? Were they in terror all the time? How were they living their lives?
That's a great question, and it provides the reason why they've taken my heart. I spend all of my non-professional time waking and sometimes not waking, trying to help these people. You get the sense when you're in the village. And by the way, I don't speak a word of Arabic or Armenian or any other language that's over there. But there was a part of there that was like, this is how we're supposed to live as humans. You know what I'm saying? And even though they were surrounded by this unbelievable horror, it's peaceful. The village itself is peaceful. You have kids playing in the streets and lighting little firecrackers off and laughing and throwing rocks at each other and just stuff that kids do. And everyone has a smile on their face when they see me. I'm a visitor, but there's a smile on their face, but there's a sobriety, I guess is the word I would use. A sobriety in their eyes, and I just found myself wanting to stay in the village because you could feel the community. You could feel where everyone had each other's back, if you will. And so in the village itself, it's quite peaceful. If I dropped a little village in fact, it reminds me of this exactly, the Central Valley of California, the geography. You get the little mountains and the hills and the fields, and it's just, you wouldn't know that we weren't in California, to be honest with you, when I took a little video there to show people, and it's beautiful. So that's the dichotomy of it. It's surrounded by horror, but they've carved out this little place, and so that's kind of the vibe in the village.
Are the people always on alert? Do they have guards standing watching, or is it just kind of like every day, and then they have their groups that do military style kind of stuff?
It's a little both. Everybody's vigilant. In fact, David Ritter, this filmmaker, the mayor didn't tell everybody that he was coming, and he was just walking around the village with his camera, a white guy, and somebody came out and drew down on him. Like, what are you doing here? It's kind of humorous, and it's like, so, no, he's here to take. Oh, okay. Nobody told him. Nobody told the whole village, that he was going to be there, and so people are on edge that way, because if you're, that again, that's why they moved out of Mosul. Was when you live in a big metropolitan area, how do you know that you don't know everybody, and the guy driving up your driveway or down your street, you don't know if that's a truck bomb or the ice cream truck, and so that's the whole purpose of why they've moved out into the countryside, if you will. But all of these groups have had to do that, and the problems that these groups have had, if you're not Arab, goes back centuries and decades and millennia, really, to be honest with you. That's why they kind of clump over there, because the only ones they feel they can trust are their own people groups. And but once you're accepted there, you're family, and at least I felt that way.
What's the population of HAVRESC?
It swells from time. When ISIS was rolled in there, they had probably taken in way more people than they could afford. Not probably, they did. I would say that probably the permanent residents there currently are between 500 and 600. People are expecting another. The UN and all the big NGOs are expecting another and preparing for 500,000 people to run out of Mosul when the big attack comes. I mean, that's a staggering number, added to what is probably 1.8 million IDPs already in Iraq. The numbers are just stunning, staggering. They're hard to believe. And so I expect that they're going to be taking in a lot more people here in transit, because even the NGOs can't take it, do it all. So
Yeah.
But 500 to 600 probably.
Yeah, let's take a break real quick and
Sure.
play a song, and we'll be back in about 4 minutes. We're here with Dr. Mike on People's Radio United, and we're taking you out with The Real Terrorist by Steel Pulse.
Your lies and hypocrisy in the name of democracy. We're living in a world so carnal. You are the ultimate Gina, yeah. You are you the catfish. You the catfish. You are you from the bottomless pit. Bottomless pit. You are you for real. The real terrorist. The real terrorist. The real terrorist. Vexation. Alright. Yeah. Yes, we can see through your disguise. What we see we sure despise. And let me tell you this, an intelligence agency. Corruption is your policy. The roots of all confusion. The start another revolution, yeah. You are you the captain. I tell you, you are you from the bottomless pit. Bottomless pit. Terrorist, the real terrorist, the real terrorist.
All right, we're back on People's Radio United. Today we're talking with Dr. Mike about the film HAVRESC and the town of HAVRESC and the whole situation over there. We got a little sidetracked and now we're back. We're going to be talking about the film. And just, can you give us like a little bit about what the film in itself is about? Like, where does it start? Who does it follow? I mean, we see the trailer, we see a bunch of dudes looking like they're protecting the town, but I haven't seen it yet. So
yeah, so the film kind of takes a look specifically at ISIS's rampage through northern Iraq, but puts it kind of in a historical context. Dave Ritter, a phenomenal filmmaker, and has a way to pluck out these small little ethnicities and tell their story. But what he does is he puts it in the historical backdrop of what happened, in the Armenian genocide. And then he shows some stories about, people who have gone face to face with ISIS, people who are widowed by ISIS, people who are victims of ISIS. And but then we also he shows what it's like to stand on courage, and that's the name of the film, HAVRESC Stand on Courage. And so it's really a very uplifting film, even if you take it outside the context of, today's ISIS attack. I believe that it's something that would inspire everybody.
You brought up a question right there I thought about. Before ISIS, like, let's go back quite a few years. And were they being attacked by anybody before that, or were they just living in pretty much, I mean, besides Saddam? I know Saddam and stuff, but I mean, so all these people were being attacked by these, what we would call, these, we use the word here in the U.S., jihadi terrorists or jihadi extremists. Really what they are is what's called Salafist Islam. Salafist means follow the Prophet in his ways, which was rape, kill, conquer, destroy. And so these people have been under attack since the U.S. Deposed and displaced Saddam, which was the reason why the village was rebuilt in 2006. So the answer to your question is yes. I mean, when we talk about the Yazidi people, there were 2 car bombs in 2006 in Sinjar that killed 600 people. We never heard about that in the U.S. Wow.
I mean, 600 people
That's horrible.
Destroyed by jihadists in Sinjar in 2000. That's 10 years ago. So, yeah, it's a dangerous part of the world. It's a very dangerous part of the world.
So ISIS is just the newest kid on the block doing this to them.
ISIS is the latest iteration. What makes them particularly virulent and why they need to be stomped is that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who's the head of what they're calling the caliphate, or the Islamic State is a caliphate, in their prophetic scriptures, they call for a caliphate to rule the world under Allah with Sharia law. And that's their object. They'll tell you that's their object. There's nothing hiding. They don't hide what they're about. We as Americans aren't connected with it because it hasn't been part of our life. Even since 9/11, it's not part of our life in terms of what we understand about them. And so, but for them, the reason why they're so virulent is that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi in July of 2014 in a mosque in Mosul declared, this is like where the only famous picture of him or we only have modern pictures of him up in that mosque in his black robe declaring the caliphate. And wasn't just declaring it, he gave an entire sermon as to why this is the time spoken of in their prophetic words. And that's why everybody came from all over the world, jihadists, to come fight and die because this is the time that is spoken of in their scriptures. So it was like ringing the dinner bell. And so the reason why it's important to destroy ISIS is to mathematically, when you talked about religion, you believe what you want to believe, people believe stuff that's possible. And if you show that, if in fact this was Allah's will, man can't stomp it out, right? And so, at least in their way of thinking. And so if we stamp it out, all of a sudden it's gonna take the fuel out of the jihadi mindset. It's not going to stop people from being jihadi terrorists or Islamic terrorists, but it's going to take the wind out of the sail currently that's the caliphate. But the fact is it's going to be with us until you and I are dead, my friend. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Which is the story of HAVRESC. They know that. They've known it all their lives, before all their lives, their grandparents' lives, their great-grandparents' lives. It's like, no, that's like, for them, this is just standard operating procedure. It's just one iteration of life. And for us, it's like, oh my God, the terrorists, it's like, shut up.
Yeah, we don't have like a huge history with like regular terrorist attacks on a daily basis so far.
No.
We have like mass shootings and crazy things, but nothing on that scale.
And even that, and I'll disclose this because it's on my website, but even the mass shooting we had in San Bernardino was across the street from one of my offices. Literally across the street.
Wow.
Now, that's sobering, but I will tell you this, and people rightly get outraged that somebody would do that to us in the United States. We're rightly and righteously outraged, as we all should be. One of the major differences between that and, for example, that bombing I just told you about, or the bombing of the church, the nunnery of the nuns, is that over there, over here, those people who committed those heinous acts were dead within hours of committing them, with great vigor and great fanfare, if you will, by all of the United States population, except for a few jihadis that live amongst us, right? Over in that part of the world, when you do that type of stuff, you get high fives at the hookah lounge.
Yeah.
And so, as much as we're concerned and distraught about jihadis, it's like, no, that's not going to happen here. And, throwing religion out the door also. There's a bunch of bubbas with shotguns in Georgia that are not, they're not holy people, but by God, they're not going to bow down to Allah. Trust me. So, that's our culture here in the U.S. We're cowboys,
I think if you threw the religion out the door, you still have racism dividing people.
Of course.
And then, there's so many divisions. So many. I say this almost every show. We're divided in so many ways. If we could unite and just get aside of our differences, most people want the same things. I'm not talking about fanatics and people, crazy, insane people. I'm saying the average person. There's probably close to 7 billion of us, and we all kind of just want to live in peace, be left alone, have a good life and be with our family.
Most of us can. Yeah. No, racism is and again, it's kind of interesting. I grew up in a very mixed, Southern California, mixed ethnically. I was the only white kid on the block, if you want to call an Armenian kid a white kid, in my neighborhood growing up. I got along with everybody. I went to a college that was the most ethnically diverse in the country. Blacks, whites, Indians, Asians, of all, Filipinos, everything. I kind of grew up in an era, where racism, what is that? I'm fortunate because I do understand that parts of this country are highly racist. But, in Southern California being a melting pot, I have a different perspective. But it turns out that over there, you want to talk about racist, but they're racist because it's the Arabs killing them all the time. I mean, killing them and torturing them. It's not like, oh, you didn't hire me because I'm X color or black color. You didn't promote me, or I didn't get to go into that college or this. They're people killing them. And, so I don't, again, this doesn't have anything much to do about racism or anything like that. But it's like, you want to talk about people who are oppressed. It's the people of HAVRESC. Yet they find a way to make things happen. And they understand who their enemy is. But they're just going to do the best for themselves, So, I hadn't thought about the racial aspect of it, but it's kind of interesting. You can even take that from this movie.
Yeah, I know how people are divided in so many ways, and a lot of them are just, ridiculous.
Yeah.
Who cares what race somebody is? Yeah, I'm from California as well, as you know. And,
right.
But when I go down south, I used to go down there. It's insanity.
No, it's like a different country, man. It's a different country.
It's like a different world.
It is.
And I can't imagine the Middle East. It would probably be even more divided than that in some areas.
Yeah. I still think you might need a passport to get into Louisiana, but I don't know.
See, I love Louisiana, but there's places there that are ridiculous, like horribly. It's not all New Orleans. When you start getting out of there, oh my God, it's horrible.
No, that's a different world, man. That's a different world.
Yeah, so we're gonna wrap this up.
Sure.
Let's go ahead and tell people where to go one more time to see the film. I don't know, can they download the film? Can they purchase the film? They can get private viewings.
I'm going to direct you to the producer and the filmmaker's website of HAVRESC.com, which you're going to put a link in there. And you can request, screenings. I think he's kind of doing screenings right now, but I know that there are videos available for purchase. I'm in possession of a few. He asked me to make available for sale at the film festival in Glendale, the International Film Festival. So if you come to the film festival, there's a little mixer before the screening, and I'll be there to answer questions for folks and talk with people. We'll have some copies of the DVD for sale. David wants, I think we're selling them for $20, and $5 goes to HAVRESC. The rest just kind of helps to cover some of the costs of the producing the video and so forth. But they are available. You'd have to contact the website to find out if they're available for sale over the mail right now. He may be doing that at some point, but I don't know that they are right now.
Yeah, I can always update it. So if you get more links, just send them to me, and I'll add them.
Will. Yeah. And there's a Facebook for the film too. HAVRESC Stand On Courage on Facebook.
Okay, and the last thing,
updates of screenings and so forth.
Oh, okay, and people can get private. Public viewings at their colleges or whatever.
Yeah,
as well,
contact
right? Dave
through the website. Dave's on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast. Again, this is not my project, but you can tell my heart's in it, and so I'm happy to come out and tell the story of HAVRESC to anyone who wants to hear it. I've been speaking frequently at Bridget Gabriel's Act for America groups, which is a political action group that stands against jihadism, and they've welcomed me to their groups to speak, and I haven't done any screenings yet because the film just barely got pressed, but I anticipate doing some screenings here on the West Coast. So,
okay, I always ask my guests at the end of the show, what do you think the people here, where we are and around the world, but mainly since we're in the United States, can do to help all oppressed people around the world, but HAVRESC as well? Like what could people be doing? Is there anything?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of answers to that, and I'll get back to the onion layer. Again, regardless of what your faith is, pray. It works, man. I've seen it work. So that doesn't cost anything. It takes some time. Just because you may not have faith doesn't mean God ain't listening. But that's one thing that anyone can do. Second is, if you want to help the people specifically of HAVRESC, I have on my own website, echo612.org, I have a dedicated PayPal that we use for relief for that village exclusively. So that's as specific as I can get. But I'm, in any group that's doing work over there, there's no amount of money we can send that will even satiate this, which is why I always start with prayer. But you can send money to groups that are doing work in that part of the world that are helpful. On my website, I have 2 that I vetted that are not my groups, but they're relief organizations that have been doing work in that part of the world, specifically way before ISIS showed up. One is Iraqi Christian Relief Council, and the other one is Restore Nineveh Now. Both of those are linked on my website, Echo 612. That's the letters Echo and the numbers 612.org. And you can go, you don't have to give money, to the PayPal at Echo 612. You can give it straight to these other people. And I've vetted those people. I've met with the operators, and I've seen them their work on the ground, so I can stand by them wholeheartedly. So, and every little bit helps, and so even $10-15 helps. You get 1,000 people, $15, that's $15,000. That does enormous amounts of, relief. So, and every little bit helps. So,
okay.
And come see the movie.
Definitely, and spread awareness about this, because this is an issue
definitely.
that people don't really know about, and just maybe even write letters to some of our politicians, trying to get them to push them to do something.
On a very good news, we kind of skipped over it very quickly at the beginning, but when going back to Jeff Gardner, when we took our testimonies of Yazidis and Christians, we turned over those testimonies to the Congress, specifically Representative Jeff Fortenberry of Nebraska. Within 3 weeks, he had penned, well, first of all, he met with National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes, who I don't have a lot of personal respect for, but he is President Obama's right-hand guy on national security stuff. And they actually came out with a press release which said we're going to change our policy in northern Iraq and arm some of these groups, including the Christians. And I was dumbfounded that he was able to get that from the administration. And I still haven't put a lot of, faith in it, but Jeff Fortenberry went out and declared or wrote the House Resolution 75, which was the House's statement, which is not law, but it's very important because the United States is a world leader. People look to us for guidance and a compass and direction, and they rally behind our policies when we create them. And so Jeff Fortenberry wrote House Resolution 75 and passed that with 393 to 0 vote in the Congress in March of 2016. And so one of the things that was really remarkable to me is that we talked about Armenia being sensitive to genocide, but the fact of the matter is the U.S. Congress declared a genocide before Armenia did over there. So, not all is, dire circumstance. There are little, bursts of, success here and there. And so that's so I don't know about writing to Congress, what that'll do, to be honest with you, but they've already kind of taken account of that. And I think for me, helping people on the ground directly is probably the most effective thing.
Okay. So, we're going to end it right now. I really appreciate you coming on, Dr. Mike. I think it was a great show, and thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure.
All right. We're going to take the people out with Solidarity by Black Uru, because that's what we need, is solidarity.
People, solidarity.
solidarity. Everybody wants the same thing, don't they? Everybody wants a happy end. They wanna see the game on Saturday. They wanna be somebody's friend. Everybody wanna work for a living. Everybody want their children warm. Everybody wants to be forgiven. They want a shelter from the storm. Look at me, I hate the enemy. We walk on common ground. We don't need to fight each other. What we need, solidarity. Oh, solidarity. Solidarity. Oh, yeah. Solidarity. Nobody likes to ask for money. Nobody likes to play the clown. Nobody likes to wait in a long line. Nobody likes being pushed around. Everybody wants a family protected. They want to express themselves. Everybody wants to live forever. Look at me, I ain't your enemy. Don't believe everything you hear. This is no time to fight each other. What we need, solidarity. Solidarity. Oh, solidarity. Solidarity. Oh, yeah. Solidarity. 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 Hey, people. Everybody wants the same thing, don't they? Everybody wants a happy end. They wanna see the game on Saturday. They wanna be somebody's friend. What we need, solidarity.